Welcome to Nurses Uncorked, where I pour out the unfiltered truth about healthcare life. I'm your host, Nurse Erica, serving up real talk straight from the front lines to your ears. Each episode, I'm uncorking conversations that matter to nurses everywhere, from the hilarious to the heartbreaking, the inspiring to the infuriating. No filters, just authentic nursing experience shared with a splash of humor and a dose of honesty. So grab your favorite beverage, put your feet up, I know they're tired, and join me as we uncork another episode of Healthcare Reality. Now let's get this shift started. Welcome to Nurses Uncorked, a space for truth, connection, and the courage to challenge the status quo. I'm Nurse Erica. I'm here to inform, empower, and advocate for every nurse and healthcare professional out there. Now let's get ready to disrupt the system. My guest this week is Colton Lord. He's the host of the Club Nurse podcast, and you may know him as one half of Nurse Daddies on social media. I want to thank everyone for downloading this episode. If you haven't done so already, please leave a review, rate, and share the episode with friends. It really goes a long way in helping me out. And just a reminder, patrons of the podcast get early access to episodes, patron-only bonus episodes, patron-only Zoom parties, all sorts of stuff for as little as $5 a month. There's a link in the show notes. Hello and welcome back to another week of Nurses Uncorked. I am joined today by none other than Colton Lord, nurse extraordinaire. Hi, Colton.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for being here this week.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's an honor, really.
Tell everyone a little bit about you if they don't know.
Yeah, so I guess I can kind of introduce myself as far as what I do in the nursing world. I currently am working in the Boston area as a nurse. I actually just quit my per diem job in the ER, which was my only thing that I was still doing at the bedside. I work in a transfer center for a hospital system out here. It's kind of a nice hybrid role that I can do from home, do in office, and then I am doing all this stuff on social media. So as you can see behind me, for watching this on video, I have also my podcast, Club Nurse, that had just recently launched on the nurse.org network, which I'm super excited about. And yeah, that's kind of how we kind of got in contact here, chatting about our podcast and everything. So yeah, I'm from Arizona, went to nursing school out there. I graduated in 2018, did some med surg work, and then went into the ER right as the pandemic was hitting because, love to torture myself. So that's how I got into the ER. And then I did some travel nursing, did a little bit of an ICU stint for about 6 months, absolutely hated it, went back to the ER. And that's kind of the extent of my nursing career.
Okay. Yeah, I've been following you for a while and I enjoy your content so much. And then I recently reached out to you for kind of a unique reason, just because I realized that you and I had kind of gone through something similar recently, and it's so niche that probably no one else has gone, although there is a third person that actually went through this recently too. So that's kind of crazy because, everything happens in threes.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I will tell you guys that Colton has taken the high road this entire time and has not, I don't even know what happened. You never even told me. You're like, no, right. I'm going to rise above. And I'm very impressed with your restraint.
Yeah, I just feel, and in when you're in, especially in the social media space, is everybody has makes up a story about you, and just even if it's not a bad story, like everyone just has a perception. Even as I watched your content forever that you've been doing, you just create this perception of somebody, of like who you think they are, just like in your own mind, whether that's good, whether that's bad. And then when things happen that are like these public fallouts, and I feel almost so cringe saying public. So I'm like, okay, we're in like the nursing niche. Like I'm not a celebrity. Like, hello. Right. I think I've made it more of a bigger deal in my own head than it really probably is. But, of course, there's going to be things that are said. And for me personally, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I just have read so many negative things about myself, and I know how terrible that feels. I don't want that picture painted of somebody else, even if I have a personal opinion about it. That feeling is just terrible. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was like, I can see now how social media is so toxic to teenagers. Toxic. Yeah. Because, to everybody. I can see why cyberbullying and people, like teenagers take their lives because of if you don't have a strong sense of self, you lose yourself and you start to believe all these things that you're reading. And so that's been my biggest reason why I feel I don't need to tell everybody everything that's happened to me in this situation, because I just know how that feels and it just feels terrible. So
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. I hope that I am as mature as you one day when I grow up.
no, not perfect. Trust me. I don't know. It's hard to navigate too, as you're
It's
experiencing it. It's
so
so like
hard.
there's no right answer. There's no textbook for this. It's like, what do I do? What do I say? Do
Yeah.
I say something to make sure that I'm defending my own character, or do I just allow everybody to think all these things about me or assume what has happened?
Yeah, and that's hard for me because I've had to fight everything my entire life, and so my automatic knee-jerk reaction is to defend myself. I almost
Yeah.
don't know how to not do that, and I recognize, like, that's a problem because not everything is an attack,
Yeah.
but if you knew everything I had been through in my life, you might understand why I feel that way, but,
Yeah. I can
not
relate
that
to that.
that's an
Yeah.
excuse, but and so for those that don't know, I'm not even gonna go into it, but just so that we're not cryptic, I obviously, if you're a listener of the podcast, we used to be 2 people hosting the podcast. It was Jessica and myself, and now it's just me, and Colton had, I don't even like, a partner, a friend, that you had an Instagram account with that you did stuff. You were kinda known as a duo, and that
Yep. The
recently
nurse daddies.
ended.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Nurse Daddies, and I think
Yeah.
did you keep that account in
Yeah.
case they
So
wanna follow
so
you?
so that's kind of the thing is and this has been my biggest backlash, and I will touch on this, is the biggest backlash that I have really faced is that from the perception online is that I basically stole this account and that I backstabbed and blindsided, Glenn, who was my partner in the Nurse Daddies. And it's just, again, it's not necessarily the case. There's so much to it. There's context that
Yeah.
people don't understand. And in my opinion, it just doesn't matter for everybody to know. So technically, yes, I have the account still. For as far as what I'm doing with it, I don't know. It's just really kind of sitting there for the most part. We do each have our own accounts. Mine right now is Colton Allen Lord, which is my first, middle, and last name. Is where I'm doing most of my nursing content, and then I did create a page for the podcast at
Yeah.
club.nurse.
I mean, that's hard because if you both have one page, obviously it can only go to one person. So someone's going to be upset either way, So
Yeah,
that's hard. If it makes you feel any better, I have not heard any backlash about you. Honestly,
yeah.
I
Well, that's
haven't.
good.
So
You're just not looking in the right places, really. Yeah. But it's been hard, and it's really hard when you start reading all these things, because then you start to think, oh, maybe I did, maybe I am, just like, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but like an asshole,
yes.
maybe. And I don't claim to be perfect in the situation. There's two of us. It's like going through. I've kind of alluded to this in my content. It's like a divorce. There's two
Yes,
people that
it is.
play into things, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect and that I've done nothing wrong, but at the end of the day, I do stand firm in myself and my beliefs. And I think that that's important, and probably something that you can attest to and it's not easy to do, to just like stand in your belief and really stand up for yourself. It's not easy to do, and it's not easy to do it in a um, professional way either.
So hard. It's so hard. I haven't really said anything publicly at all.
Mhm.
And that's not my goal. Fortunately, knock on wood, to my knowledge, there has not been any backlash against me. And I can only assume that's because she has not said anything publicly about me as well. And so I want to say I appreciate that, but at the same time, there's nothing really to say. And I've had a lot of loyal podcast listeners that have just been inundating me like, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Yeah.
And I feel bad because I feel like they deserve an answer. They
Yeah.
do. They've been loyal listeners, maybe they're patrons or whatever, and I get that's shocking. That's confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything that for that audience of these people that are asking, is there anything that you want to share with them, or kind of what is your intention behind the podcast? Like, why do you show up every week to bring the information that you bring, and why is this space so important to you to continue, even though you don't have that co-host with you?
Yeah, it's a very long story, and I'm not gonna go into all of it. I will say that because this is not secret, this is known, that she started her own podcast,
Hmm.
and that's fine. It's not nursing, it's called Decoding Celebrities. You should certainly go and follow her on social media and the podcast. It's about celebrity stuff like Britney Spears and stuff like
Okay.
that. I didn't know that she had started another podcast. And we had a fight. It wasn't even a big fight, it was a little fight. And she accused me of something that I vehemently deny. But, if that's her reality, okay,
Mhm.
if she felt that way. And then right immediately following that, I had to fly to Seattle to give a keynote speech on Nurses Day
Mm.
to a bunch of nurses, a nursing union. And so I wake up on Nurses Day, and I'm always kind of sentimental on Nurses Day. And I texted her and I said, like, hey, I don't know what's going on with us, but I love you. It's Nurses Day. Happy Nurses Day.
Mhm.
No reply. And that afternoon, I'm getting ready to go give my speech. It's an hour before my speech. I'm in the hotel room trying to calm down, get in the zone, because I get really nervous when I do public speaking.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just have TikTok playing in the background as a distraction. And a video came up of hers that she has a new podcast.
And unbeknownst to you, this was the first you heard about it. Okay.
Completely unbeknownst to me. And I was a combination of shocked and literally like trying not to cry because I couldn't mess up my makeup because I had to
Yeah.
go get on stage and give this, and I called my friend and this just happened. Oh my God. Like I just had to talk it through. I was truly in shock.
Yeah.
Truly. I didn't know how to even wrap my mind around that. And it became clear that this had been in the works for a while.
Mm.
Like it was already set up. There was a couple episodes, couple different guests,
Of course, there's a lot
and
to it. You don't just
a
launch a podcast.
lot.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't just
Yeah. Yeah.
come up with a new podcast in 2 days or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So that was very hurtful, but it also, in my mind, answered some questions about what's going on. Because, my theory, and maybe it's not her reality, but my theory is she maybe felt a certain way about wanting to step away, but didn't
Didn't know how to
have
say
the
it or
ability to say
mm.
that to me.
Mhm.
And so, it's easier when you can make someone the bad guy
Sure. Sure.
and then go do what you want. So
Uh,
in a weird way, it kind of helped. I will say that 3 months out, it has been very tumultuous, very painful because there are still things that are not worked out. We
mhm.
had an LLC together,
Mhm.
a business account, like all these things.
It's
And
complicated, yeah.
it's
Like we
very
said
complicated.
it's very similar to a divorce. Like
It
there's
is.
details and you have to iron them out. It's not like you can just part ways and never talk again.
Yeah. So it's baby steps trying
Mhm.
to get all of that figured out. Some of it has been. There's still a few remaining things. I don't have access to some things still.
Mhm.
And so still trying to navigate that. But if I'm being truly honest to myself, that moment, that day, I cannot understate or overstate how painful that was.
Yeah.
On Nurses Day, like the irony of this, you couldn't even make this up. On
Right.
Nurses Day, by someone who was, truly such a good friend. We talked every single day, loved her
Mhm.
despite, occasional fights like sisters or
Sure.
whoever would.
Of course.
A huge part of my life to find out in the way that I found out, and then to have to go get on stage and be like Nurse Erica, and be high energy and
Yeah.
motivate hundreds of nurses. And this is how you fight back corruption. And,
Yeah.
that was not an easy day for me. It was really painful. And so it's going to go down forever in my mind as top 5, one of the most painful days of my life. And I know that might sound silly, but
No,
the
no, it's not.
way that it played out was just unnecessarily hurtful in my
Yeah, yeah.
mind.
And the beginning of a grieving process, and I'm sure you're still battling with that,
Yeah.
of grieving kind of what this was. And kind of like we touched on, like there's no right or wrong way to go about this. And I think you kind of going back to what you said about, maybe if you said something, maybe this was her reality. And I think that's what's hard in these situations is like something that I try to be aware of is my reality is not the same as, my counterpart's reality in the situation that we're going through as far as like the nurse daddy splitting up. There's two realities. Everybody has their own perception and story. And I think like that's why these things happen, because obviously there's not an agreement on why, there was things going on. But I can imagine for you that's really difficult to kind of out of nowhere just be like, there's this new podcast. Like, have you guys had, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing or you want to, but have you guys had conversations since about why, or has it kind of just been how, just trying to figure out logistics of how am I going to get access to the things I need to continue the show?
It has mostly been about logistics, and it has been very difficult because there's been a lot of unresponsiveness to
Yeah.
a lot of requests. So no, there hasn't really. I would totally be open to it. I would have done it the next day, had a sit down
Yeah.
talk about it. That has never really been on the table. I did say at one point early on, clearly this is your passion, the new podcast,
Yeah.
and that's fine. So go do that. Be happy.
Mhm.
And this is my passion. Obviously, everyone that knows me and has ever followed me knows nursing advocacy is my passion. And so
Yeah.
I
You're
will,
great at it. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
I will gladly take over the Nurses Uncorked podcast. That it made sense to me. And
Yeah.
at first she said she was in agreement. But, one of the frustrating things is actions have not met words, and
Mhm.
I'm a big believer in actions speak louder than words. You
Sure.
judge someone
Always.
on their
Always.
actions, not on what they claim.
Yeah. Always.
So that has been frustrating because there's been a lot of unnecessary roadblocks and some that I'm still trying to navigate. But all that being said, I only wish her the best.
Yeah,
And
of
I have
course.
to say, I'm so grateful to her, honestly, for so many things because I never would have done a podcast on my own. Never.
Yeah.
Like it was 100% her idea. She called me and said, "Hey, I have this idea. What do you think?" And I was hesitant and she kind of motivated me and pushed me. And so I'm grateful for that because I would not be here where I am now with this podcast had she not done that. I know
Wow.
myself and I would not have done it on my own. So I'm grateful for that. And we had so many good times. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like we traveled a lot. I would bring her to different nursing strikes around the country. We went to Hawaii. We froze our ass off in the middle of winter on strike lines. We sweated our ass off in the middle of summer on strike lines. We went to Hawaii. We went on a helicopter ride. We interviewed the president of the ANA.
Yeah.
We had John Edward on the podcast. We had the president of different nursing associations. We've had a lot of not only great memories that I will cherish, but we have done some very important episodes that I am so proud of.
Yeah.
And, not all, some of them were just fun and just us chit chatting about
Sure.
current events. But there are some very important episodes that I will forever, every day, I refer nurses to that reach out to me for advice or questions. I say, hey, go watch episode 33 of the
Yeah.
podcast because
Yeah.
that breaks this down. And so I'm proud of what we produced together. I'm proud of what we accomplished. And I have a lot of great memories. And right now, I think I'm trying to work through the pain and anger.
Sure, sure. And I think that that's so, not to cut you off, but it's so important for you to acknowledge that because similarly to what you were saying, as much as how things have been kind of bad in my situation now, I feel the same exact way in the sense of obviously we were friends for a reason. We had a connection, a chemistry that was undeniable. It was fun. We had, we went to Paris, London,
Yeah.
so many places and it's fun. These are memories. We made so many people laugh. Like people loved, the dynamic that we had together. And it's unfortunate that we are where we are today, but that doesn't take away, that doesn't mean that everything else was fake or that we were,
Yeah.
it didn't exist. And so I think that's really, really important for you to acknowledge that and that you did create these really, great resources for people and conversations and you're giving her that acknowledgement of pushing you to do this podcast and it's important to hold on to those things and not look back and be like it was all terrible, it was all a lie, like I think that that's really important, and I applaud you for recognizing that in the situation.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we were at one of the national nurses marches in DC. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
We were both at the Redonda Vaught sentencing day event. Like we were at some pretty kind of historic stuff together. So a lot of kind of core memories
Hmm.
are with her. And we would laugh our ass off. We had a lot of fun
Yeah.
together, despite being very different people. We had a
Yeah.
lot of fun
Yeah.
most of the time. And so I think right now, as stuff is still trying to be worked out and settled, it's very easy for me to give in to the anger because
Yes.
if I'm being honest, there are things that I have a million% right to be angry about that are
Of
just
course.
not right that have been
Of
done to me.
course. Of course.
But I'm trying to be the more mature, the better
Yeah.
person or the bigger person and hold on to those memories because I don't want to diminish those at all. And I only wish her the best. Like, I hope that her new podcast and everything that she's doing, the non-nursing content, I hope that that makes her happy. And I hope that
Yeah.
it is successful for her. And I hope that her kids do well. She has adorable kids and her family. And, I am trying to focus on the good
Yeah.
stuff and not the
Yeah.
bad stuff.
And at the same time, you still, like you said, have to kind of go through the motions of being pissed off and why did this happen and all the logistics. And you're not, while you're acknowledging all those things, like you're not wrong to feel how you feel in the situation. And so I am curious, this is kind of, I don't know if this is off topic, but how did you get into nursing advocacy? How did this all kind of come about? Because I don't know like the
Yeah.
origin story. And I don't know, I'm sure you've told it on the podcast, but
Yeah. So here's my elevator pitch when people ask me that. And it's not very exciting. This is how I've been my entire career.
Mm,
So new grad me 20 plus years ago was saying the same stuff by and large and being just as vocal about it as I am now. The
mhm.
difference is that I was doing it for my unit, my coworkers in a
Yeah.
very small space, and not having all the knowledge that I have now. But I've
Mhm.
always kind of been this way. This has never been my plan. I'm the least likely person in the entire world to be on social media. My
Yeah.
entire social media consisted of posting dance pictures of my kids on Facebook. Literally, that's it. That's it.
Love that. Yeah.
And then in 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic, I downloaded TikTok because
Mhm.
my kids were both living at home. My son had moved back home because of COVID,
There was
and
nothing else to do but be on TikTok
right,
anyway.
and they kept talking about this thing called TikTok, and I'm
Mm,
like, okay, let me
yeah,
spy on them because I'm a helicopter mom. Same
yeah,
reason I got Snapchat a million years ago.
yeah, like, let me see what you're doing on here, yeah.
Right. So then, inevitably, if you know TikTok, you end up on nurse TikTok side of things.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
And I was impressed and loved every bit of that, but I realized there really was nothing, especially at that time, from a leadership perspective, and I
Mhm,
had already been in management at that point. There was all bedside nurses, and that's
mhm.
needed, and it should be the majority, but there
Yeah,
was no one talking about what happens behind the curtain.
mhm,
What is the corruption? What is actually when managers tell you this, what's actually going on behind the scenes? So I
mhm.
started just talking about that and my experiences, and this is what's happening. And it resonated, obviously. And, it has grown in 5.5 years to what it is now. But to answer your question, this is truly me. And anyone that knows me will tell you that's literally Erica. What you see is what you
Yeah,
get. That's
yeah.
literally her. Yeah.
So you were already kinda doing this, and then it's just basically hitting record on a camera and talking into the abyss of whatever
The
we're talking into,
void.
into the
Yeah,
void.
which is
Yeah.
so weird, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that you've gone to all these. 'Cause, like, I've seen you go to all these strikes and show up at these really important uh, events and things happening. What does that mean to you? Like when you show up to these things, like why do you feel like it's important to be a presence? Like I told you, I was listening back, and I encourage anybody listening to this podcast, if you haven't already, I'm sure you have, but to go back and listen to the last episode that Erica did with Redonda and who the other. You were with two people, Redonda and
Matt, my friend
okay.
Matt
Okay, yeah,
Garvey.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so go back and listen to that. It's a great episode. So yeah, why do you like? What is the purpose for you showing up to these things, and why does that matter to you?
Nurses are almost never empowered, right? If you think collectively, the 5.67 whatever million nurses in this country, it is such a small fraction that ever are empowered to take action, to make a move like that. So prior to 2020, a nursing strike was rare.
Mm-hmm.
Rare. Like, you almost never heard about it, okay? And then with COVID and everybody, just pissed off and everything, it has become not just increased, but almost common.
Yeah.
But if you have never been to a nursing strike, I know this sounds so silly, like, why would you wanna go to a strike? That doesn't sound like fun. No, go. I promise you, you will leave there feeling so energized and so empowered
Mm-hmm.
because every day nurses see other nurses being victimized, being quieted, their voice taken away, losing hope. all these things. But you get out on a nursing strike line where there's hundreds of nurses with signs and they're screaming and they're being as vocal as they've ever been in their entire career, telling you all the corruption and all the terrible things that the hospital or their employer is doing. There is nothing like that energy. And the fact that they're doing it all together, because notoriously nurses never stick together. We don't do
Mm-hmm.
anything collectively, almost
Yeah.
ever. So to
Yeah.
witness that is a beautiful thing. I will
Yeah.
never say no to going to a nursing strike. It's so much fun.
That's
You
actually
gotta try it.
that's a great point, because I guess when you think about it, nurses may stick together on a particular unit maybe, but it is kind of like a battle of departments in a hospital, like
Absolutely.
everybody hates the ER. It's very well known. But yeah, that's a great point to make as far as being out there. Everybody's collectively. It's kind of how I would compare it to things that, and I mean, I was way too young to really remember 9/11, but it's that like when things like that happen at a scale in our country, everybody, even from all sides of the political spectrum, come together for one thing. So it's kind of the same thing and a strike.
Mhm.
So I can see how that's empowering to be at. And I didn't really understand unions because I started in Arizona and we didn't have nursing unions until I moved out to Boston, and I was like, I don't understand this. But then as I have watched things and educated myself and understood more, it is very important. And I think that you showing up to those things, and I think really it's important because it's also just increasing the visibility of these hospitals and why they're striking.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your analogy of 9/11. That's
Mm.
a really good analogy. Yeah, the majority of nurses don't understand unions. They don't.
Yeah.
And, I'll say something that people will be shocked to hear. I don't think that every union is wonderful.
Yeah.
But you don't hear me talk, poorly about nursing unions because overall they are so important, right? There is one
Mhm.
union, I'm not going to name it, that I will never support,
Mhm.
but I get that some nurses' experiences with unions have been negative. I get that.
Yeah.
But first of all, it's up to you. You are the union. And
Mhm.
nurses historically do not get involved with their union. So if you don't like what your union is doing,
Get
why are
involved.
you not there? Why are you
Yeah.
not asking questions? Why are you not volunteering to get involved? Because
Mhm.
you are the union, right? But understanding that there's really only two ways in the current climate of nursing in this country, there's really only two ways for nurses to have power and to be protected.
Mhm.
One is through legislation, and the other one is through nursing unions. Period.
Mhm.
That's it. Those are the
Yeah.
only two ways. Unless the system one day crumbles and has to be rebuilt from the ground up, and I kind of hope it does, that's what we have to play with. Those are the tools right now.
Mhm.
So if you're not meeting with your legislators and pushing them to support the nurse centric legislation and bills, and, then why are you not at least supporting unions? Because that's the only two ways that you can hold healthcare organizations accountable. The only two ways to force their hand is laws
Mhm.
and a union contract. That's it, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not,
Yeah. Yeah. Is that
It's
so?
so
Is that
important.
so? It's. I mean, I can feel how passionate you are about these things to the screen. So is that why? Then I'm kind of coming back to your podcast. Is this your why behind what you do? Is it to, because the stuff can be very complicated. Like I said, I didn't have any idea. I'm sure that I still don't understand majority of things with unions and legislation. But is that your goal and your why? To educate people and make people aware of how to get involved. And like you're saying, if you're going to sit there on the sidelines and bitch and complain about what's happening, then are you doing the things to get involved to make change? So is that kind of why you do what you do?
That is a huge part of it. Another part is violence against healthcare workers. That's a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
passion of mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm always talking about that. But a big part is education. Um, and then the other part is getting the stories out there because the media notoriously does not cover the issues that we need them to cover. And if they
Yeah.
do, it is so downplayed. RT, a CNA, someone does something wrong. They're going to say it's a nurse in the
Hmm.
headline.
Of
They just
course.
always are painting
Yeah.
us in the worst light. They're only ever telling hospital's side of things if there's an incident, their PR statement instead of talking to the nurses.
Just so weird. Why do you think that is?
Because healthcare organizations, with all their money, contribute to all the local news stations.
Okay.
They have them in their pocket oftentimes. Yeah.
So it's like, let's
And
vilify the nurses.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a mission to really tell the whole story, and I'm
Mhm.
grateful that nurses trust me, and so they come to me with very precarious, very private stories that could easily get them fired, reported to the board, and they're
Mhm.
scared to death to talk to me. They somehow trust me, and so I'm always so grateful for that. And so I feel a responsibility to tell the whole story while protecting their anonymity, because God
Yeah.
knows the media is not going to tell it.
No, no. You know exactly, yeah, how the media will twist it, and I go back to I don't want to speak on her behalf or tell her story about Redonda, but I mean that's just one that comes to mind for I think everybody in the
Mhm.
nursing, because it was so publicly out there. But just how fast it just twists, and if you don't understand nursing or healthcare or asking the questions as to why these things are happening, and it's a great example as someone who came forward to, oh, I made a mistake, but it makes sense as to why people don't, because
Yeah.
you're scared. Like, oh my God, like what's going to happen if I'm going to be criminally charged and I could possibly face jail time? Why would I, say anything?
Yeah, I'm the first one to say, and I've gotten a lot of backlash for this. If I was bedside right now and I had a med error or something, some kind of error that I caught, and I didn't think anyone else would be able to find out about it, 100% I'm not telling anyone.
Yeah.
100% I'm not reporting it. I know that's wrong. I know. But I
Yes.
also know what they do to nurses in this day and age
Yes.
that they
Yeah.
didn't do 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I am not willing to go through a criminal trial
Yeah.
and possibly end up in jail and bankrupt, in
Right.
addition to being fired and losing my license.
Yeah, your whole livelihood.
I'm not willing to do that. And that's why just culture is so important,
Hmm.
because the public doesn't understand that. It's so much more
Yeah.
dangerous right now to be a patient since Redonda's case, because
Yeah.
nurses, by and large, not everyone,
Yeah.
some maybe are still going to do the right thing and God bless them.
Yeah.
But the majority of nurses are not going to report it if they think that they can get away with it. And
Yeah.
neither would you if you were in that position,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, because why would you? And especially if you're in a position to where you made a med error and looking at the situation, well, maybe nothing will come of this, whatever. Of course, you're going to kind of just look the other way and not get yourself into a world of trouble because you have no idea what's going to happen to you.
As a nurse, I've used stethoscopes more than I can count. But the first time I tried the Echo Core 500 digital stethoscope, it honestly stopped me in my tracks. What I love about it is it doesn't replace your clinical judgment. It strengthens it. The Echo AI app acts like a second set of expert ears, helping you pick up on things that would be really easy to miss in a noisy environment or during a long shift. Echo combines the stethoscope that you already know and love with enhanced audio and advanced AI to help you detect heart and lung conditions earlier and with more confidence. Echo's digital stethoscope amplifies heart and lung sounds up to 40 times, and noise cancellation just cuts out all those distractions. You can unlock murmurs and AFib detection powered by the Echo AI app, along with digital recordings that integrate seamlessly so that you can actually hear what your team members heard. You can share it. It's amazing. Backed by millions of heart sounds and 8 FDA clearances for devices and AI algorithms. Clinical studies show that those who use Echo are 2 times more likely to detect heart disease. If you want to bring your stethoscope into the 21st century and give yourself the peace of mind that AI can provide, check out the Echo Core 500 digital stethoscope, because sometimes catching the smallest sound can make the biggest difference. I trust Echo so much that I worked with their team to create a special offer just for Nurses Uncorked listeners. Right now, you can get up to $50 off, plus a customizable chest piece cover for free at echohealth.com/uncorked. Your purchase may be HSA and FSA eligible and may even qualify for CME reimbursement. Echo guarantees that you'll detect heart and lung conditions more confidently, and if you don't, you can return it for a full refund. Go to echohealth.com/uncorked for $50 off plus a free chest piece cover. That's ekohealth.com/uncorked.
What kind of bedside nursing did you do?
Pediatrics. My
Pediatric.
whole
Okay.
background. Yep. Pediatrics, tons of pediatric oncology, some wound care here and there. I love wound care. And now I've been in hospice for the last several years. Now, pediatric hospice program development primarily.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. So that's what
Yeah.
you do
In
now
my-
off the internet. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool. How do you like that?
I love it. People hear pediatric hospice and they you can see the look on their face. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry."
Uh,
They're horrified, but it's actually beautiful. There's differences, right? So, adult hospice, they die typically quickly, not
mhm,
always, but
mhm.
typically quickly. They're supposed to be, 6 months less of dying, right? The
Yeah.
difference with pediatric hospice, well, we'll see how everything's going to go now with all these recent changes, but it's supposed to be that they are allowed aggressive concurrent care.
Mm,
So that means you
mm,
don't stop any of the experimental treatments if you don't want to. You don't
yeah.
stop any of the aggressive therapies. Whereas adult hospice, you stop everything. It's
Everything.
comfort
Yeah.
care only,
Yeah.
right? So, because who wants to be the asshole to tell the parents of the dying child, no, you can't go try that
Yeah.
clinical trial,
Yeah.
No. So they will keep doing all these things. And what that looks like, the way you determine eligibility is okay, if we remove the aggressive treatment, would they then likely die within
Mm,
6 months? If we take them off the vent, will they die? Yeah. If we
mhm.
stop the dialysis, will they die in 6 months? Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we stop the palliative chemo that's keeping the tumor at a reasonable size, will they die in 6 months? Maybe, maybe not.
Mhm.
But that's how you start to look at it to determine eligibility. And so, because they're allowed the aggressive concurrent care, they often, not always, but they often will stay on service for a very long time, for
Wow.
years.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes it's successful and they like graduate
They get
off
off
of
of it. Yeah.
hospice, which is amazing. I
Of
mean, not
course.
always. There's absolutely gut-wrenching stories. They're admitted on a Monday and they die on a Wednesday,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. That's
I
hard.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's
That's
very gratifying.
is that a lot of so it's a lot of like pediatric cancer, like oncology that you're seeing? Because as kids, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't work with pediatrics. Even in my ER experience, I've mostly done adult only ERs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So is it mostly yeah, pediatric oncology patients, or is there kind of like a whole spectrum of pediatric patients
It's
that would
a
require
whole
hospice?
spectrum.
Mm,
Oncology is a chunk. I would say more so it's like birth defects and syndromes
mm.
that they're born with, things like that, working through the disease process. And then they finally succumb to congenital issues
Wow. Yeah. See,
a lot of the
I
time.
didn't even realize this world existed. I mean, I know adult hospice, and I've had a hospice nurse, Julie. I think she does a great job at kind of
Love
educating
her.
people on. Yeah, she's amazing. She's so amazing. I
Yeah.
love her platform. On that side of it, but yeah, I didn't even realize there was a pediatric side of this. You don't ever
There
talk about that in
is.
your content.
I did early on, and there's still I think I have a playlist maybe on TikTok. There's still some old videos of it. Yeah. I'm always willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
There is a challenge with it because, at least for me, the challenge is trying to educate the pediatric providers. So all the peds specialists out there that not only that they can refer their patient to peds hospice, but that they meet criteria and it doesn't mean you're giving up or you're a failure as
Yeah.
a physician. And that's a
Yeah.
big hurdle
Yeah.
is, they're like, "No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to take away the parents' hope." Well, but we're going to supply all of their supplies and their meds. It's going to
Sure.
be financially better for the family.
Yeah.
We're going to give them all
Resources.
this support and resources. We're going to keep them so comfortable when the time comes. And they get to pass at home with their stuffed animals, their friends, their family,
Yeah.
their dog in the bed, whatever it may be, rather than in the hospital, probably not getting adequate pain relief.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's what an important job, though. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for trying to get nurses to see that they don't have to work only at the bedside. That there's so many other
Yeah.
options. So this is just another one that I didn't even know about. That's I feel like would be a very fulfilling job. I think hospice can be very heavy, but fulfilling in a lot of ways too. Speaking on people dying. This is totally, well, not totally off topic, but I was supposed to be in Vegas next weekend for Kelly Clarkson's show, but her ex-husband just
Oh,
died.
her ex yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I'm like, "Where's he
Yeah.
going with this?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. If you come, you have to let me know so we can
I'm not, because I was like, that was the only reason I was going. About the shows are rescheduled for next
Okay.
year, but I might be in Vegas for the Travel Nurse Conference that is in
Yeah,
Vegas.
that's coming up in what, September? I think
Yeah.
TravCon? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
couple friends
I might
coming.
be there. Yeah.
Yeah, let
So
me know. Yeah, I
yeah.
heard about that. Her husband died. What did he die of again? I don't remember.
They
I
just
know
had
he was
cancer. I
young.
guess, yeah, I guess he'd been silently battling cancer for the last 3 years. She announced on her social media that the August would be her shows would be canceled because her ex husband was ill, and then the next day it came out that he died. So
Sometimes it
I know.
happens so quickly.
I know.
Didn't they have a very ugly breakup? I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know
I
a
don't.
lot about it, but wasn't there some songs?
Yeah, yeah, she released like an album. I went to Vegas. I'm obsessed with Kelly Clarkson, and she released kind of a divorce-ish album,
Okay.
and she had a little bit Vegas run, and I went to that show as well. But it sounds like, and again, I don't fully know. Obviously, it sounds like they had filed for a divorce, and then right after that, he had been diagnosed with cancer. So it sounds like he's been battling it for a few years. But yeah, again, totally off topic.
No, that's okay. I love that kind of stuff too.
Little pop culture in there.
And what I think as someone who has been a wife that's been cheated on and having
Yeah.
to get divorced when maybe you don't want to and having kids and all that, where my
Mhm.
mind goes is that sucks for her. I mean, obviously it sucks for him. But so she had to go through this horrible, painful thing, presumably.
Mhm.
And then she did a whole album and took back
Mhm.
her power and
Mhm.
told her story. And then it's like the
Mhm.
wind is pulled out of all her sails and he's
Yeah.
given a terminal diagnosis because then
Yeah.
how can you be the person saying he did me wrong when he's dying?
I know. Yeah, that's
Terrible.
a terrible place to be in, especially because it's not like he's just her ex; he's the father of her children. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's tough. But that was yes, my Vegas trip got canceled.
Well, that's okay. Let me know if you come for
Yeah,
TravCon. I'll meet up
I
with
will.
you.
I will, of course.
Let's talk about you for a minute though. I've been
Oh,
talking this whole time.
okay.
I saw a video recently where you were talking about having seizures in nursing school.
Yeah, I did.
Can you tell us that story? That was brave
Sure.
to tell that story,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I this was actually kind of inspired, I guess, from I had Julie, hospice nurse Julie, on my podcast, and I did a bonus episode of her talking about her sobriety, which I feel
Yes,
like is very important for nurses, especially because I think a lot of nurses really struggle with, I mean, people in general, but nurses specifically struggle with, addiction and substance abuse. It's because of the nature of our job.
absolutely.
But yeah, when I was in nursing school, it was terrible. I was just a typical college student, like partying way too hard, even through nursing school. Like my nursing class, even our instructors would tell us, we've never really had like a group like you guys. We would finish we would literally finish a test, and like we would walk out of our nursing building, and we would have little shooters. I don't know what you guys call them,
Oh
the little
my God,
nips,
really?
and we would just take them and we would just go party the rest of the day. We were crazy.
We would go to the bar, but we would
We
wait
did,
till we got to the bar.
yeah, we did that too, but it's like we couldn't wait. Somebody would grab them on the way to class, and we would just go out there. I have literally video footage, which I shouldn't, but I do. But yeah, I was the first one I had. I was in nursing school, and I worked as a waiter all through school, and I was working at a Texas Roadhouse. I hated that job, but I remember this vividly. It was crazy. I was serving a table. I remember it was mom and her two kids, and they had asked me. They didn't have silverware, and their food got delivered. I was like, oh, so I went to the back to grab them silverware, and there was none in where we keep it. So I had to go all the way to the very back of the kitchen where somebody was like rolling it. And I went to grab it, and then that was the last thing I remembered. And I remember the craziest part about for me having a seizure was like waking up, and I remember being postictal and being so confused after the fact. Like I can like call what I was seeing. I had a girlfriend at the time, and I remember sitting on the ground and looking up and seeing her, and I knew who she was, but couldn't put a name to it. Or I was like, what is going on? And then the ambulance came, took me to the hospital, whatever, they didn't know why it happened first time. They did a CT scan, ruled out anything life threatening, sent me home. And in Arizona, you have to, again, with self-reporting, I had to self-report to the state for as far as driving goes. And so I couldn't drive for 3 months.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
God bless him, my friend he was already graduated from college, and he was just kind of like hanging out, and I was going Flagstaff at Northern Arizona University. He was just kind of hanging out. He would drive me to my clinicals, and that semester I had clinical in Sedona, and so he would drive me from Flagstaff to Sedona. I think it was once or twice a week. 3 months of the day when I was supposed to be able to drive again, I had another one, and I was, again, these were both after nights of partying way too hard. I
Blackout.
wasn't, yeah, blackout. I wasn't I mean, that is binge drinking, but I wasn't somebody who drank 5 days in a row, like your typical withdrawal seizures. It was just nights of just partying way too hard. The second one was in Phoenix and Scottsdale, was at a restaurant again, but I was eating this time, and I just was eating, and it just happened again. So they off to the ER I went. They did the whole same thing again. After that, I told people, if I have another seizure, please don't bring me to the ER. I don't need to keep paying for these ambulances. And like,
Just make sure I'm safe, clear the scene.
clear the scene. If I have another one, okay, maybe take me. But if I have just one, just watch me for a second before you call 911.
Right.
But yeah, I followed up with a neurologist at the Mayo Clinic, did an MRI. There was nothing on there. I had to wear the EEG on my head for overnight, and everything came back normal. So the neurologist was just like, maybe you should just cut back on drinking a little bit. And I was like, I guess.
How did he know? Did you tell him, or he just
Yeah, I mean,
figured it out?
no, I told him. I mean, I wasn't, I mean,
Okay.
it was very obvious. I mean, after the second one, I was like, okay, obviously there is a common denominator here. I was really partying on both of these. And plus, like, I was in college, I wasn't sleeping, like, who knows what else I was doing, and drinking, and just like in nursing school, I was working, just not taking care of myself. Yeah. And so I just had those two, and I was really afraid to ever drink again. It took me a
Sure.
while to reintroduce alcohol into my life. I mean, and it definitely gave me perspective to have
Yeah.
control of myself. There's been a couple isolated events where I have gone too far, and the next day, like, super anxious, like, oh my God, please nothing happened. But a much more better control on the drinking.
No more seizures.
No more seizures, no more seizures. And yeah.
That must have been so scary, though. I can't imagine.
It was scary, because I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? Why am I having, again, it wasn't like I was, the typical drinking 5 days in a row, you're going to have the withdrawal seizure, like, go in the hospital, see what all that was. Just like,
Yeah.
just the one night of partying was doing it to me. So apparently my threshold is not very high.
Well, I applaud you for talking about that so
Yeah.
openly. You seem to have a newfound openness these days on social media. Would you say that's accurate?
I think so. I think a lot of my life I really held a lot in. I grew up in a very small conservative town in Arizona, and I didn't come out as gay till I was 24. I just spent a lot of my
Okay.
life just holding things in and not speaking my truth. And so I think that I feel almost um yeah, like, people just need to hear that. And I hate to think of somebody else out there struggling, whether that be with their sexuality or with an addiction, or just anything in their life, like their mental health, like, because yeah, when you suppress that and you don't get it out of your body, it takes over. And so yeah, I feel very passionate about that, and sharing. I feel like sharing, when you share your struggles and people can see that you're also just a human with issues, it helps them to maybe, like, speak their truth a little bit too.
Do you have anyone special in your life now? Can I ask?
Like, that I'm dating or a partner or anything?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So my life this last year has been a roller coaster. I'm going through a divorce right now. So
Right?
yes. So, well, with Glenn, but an actual divorce. So
Oh,
with
oh my
yeah,
gosh. Okay. I thought oh wow. You have two
let
two
me clarify
divorces
this.
at
Let
once.
me
Oh my
clarify this.
gosh. I'm
Yes,
so sorry. I had no idea.
that's okay. My ex and I we're in a good place, a healthy place with each other. I can see
Okay.
him. We can, like, go have coffee, and everything's fine. But yeah, we separated about almost a year ago now. So yeah, that's been on top of everything else that I have been going through. It's just been a really, really hard year.
It's been one of those years. Yeah. Because
It
when it
has
rains,
been,
it
yeah.
pours. I know.
When it rains, it pours. That is right. Yes, it's been really, really tough, but
I'm
it's okay.
sorry.
It's okay.
But I can see that you at least have a really good outlook with everything that you post online. And I think you're making a difference in sharing your story with other people, you
Try to.
know?
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's that's always been my intention with social media, is to create community, and put content out that is intentional and helpful to people. And it's kind of funny, because I was already posting things on social media before the Nurse Daddies. The Nurse Daddies was a total accident. It just happened. I recorded with Glenn one day, and it just went viral, and that's kind of how the Nurse Daddies was born.
That's often how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of stopped. I had my own podcast. It was called the Mile 17 podcast. It was really kind of more of a mental health style podcast. I stopped doing that, really went all in on the Nurse Daddies. And I loved a lot of it. We talked about the memories, like, I would not go back and change it, even through all the pain I've been going through now. But at the end of the day, I wasn't trying to be the creator that was on there just making just funny videos and dancing. While sometimes it's fun to do, that wasn't my main focus.
Yeah.
I feel like there's space for that on the internet, and the people that do it, like Blake and John, like they're hilarious. They do a great job with that.
Yeah.
But that was never my intention initially getting on social media. So I think when I kind of fell into that, it started to really feel just like to a point.
Performative.
Yes. And I don't like we were the nurse daddies. Like people referred to me as like Daddy Colton, and I always would kind of cringe. I don't feel like that. That's
Yeah.
not what I want to be. And I don't want to say it like it wasn't me showing up, but there was a lot of it that, yes, was kind of like performative, and like just got to a point to where when you do that long enough, like you burn out and you feel like this is not really what I want to be doing. But it's hard when when you get to a point to
When
where we
you're
were.
half of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
totally relate to that because I always say, I'm not funny. I'm
Yeah.
not an entertaining person. I'm a in your face, straightforward, here's what you need to know, here's what you should
Mhm.
do person. And yeah, my former co-host is not that. She's the opposite. She's,
Mhm.
very vivacious and, again, out
Mhm.
there. And
Mhm.
yeah, sometimes she would want us to do TikToks or different trends where I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so outside my comfort zone. It was
Yeah.
hard for me, but some of them were fun. I would do some of
Right.
them, but
Yeah, yeah. And that's how I
yeah.
feel. Is like, yes, like some of like sure there's the ones that pop up that I feel like the ones that I like to do, if I see something on TikTok, I immediately will be like, "Oh, I have an idea for this." If I'm out there looking for something, like I'm looking for a trend to do, that's where I'm like, "Ugh, this feels so gross." And then I'm like, "What is the point of me doing this?" Sure, people laugh or whatever, but if I'm just posting this to get views and likes and try to go viral and use this trend, like that just doesn't like what is my intention with this and what am I trying to do with that? And I just don't do well with that. I like connection. I like to have, conversations that are deeper and more meaningful. And of course I like to have fun and do other things too. But my main purpose and goal, what I feel is that's why I love like the podcast space, because I feel like you connect with people more and you kind of hear more about somebody versus like a 30-second, silly dance on TikTok.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And I love
Yeah.
the long form content as well. It really gives
Mhm.
you an opportunity to tell so much more.
Now for your Enema of the Week.
This week's Enema Award is brought to you by Happy Bum Co., a leader in at-home enema solutions. We all know that enemas act mechanically and osmotically to stimulate bile flow, peristalsis, and promote excretion of metabolic byproducts and bowel emptying, of course. But did you know that enemas have been used in Egyptian, Greek, and Roman medicine for millennia? They're mentioned in ancient Chinese medicine and on ancient papyrus and texts by Hippocrates. Florence Nightingale even used enemas to relieve soldiers' pain during the Crimean War. And this practice reportedly continued during World War I when doctors turned to enemas as an alternative due to opioid shortages. It's one of the oldest forms of medicine there is. Some people use it as a wellness and biohacking tool. And with Happy Bum Co., anyone can use enemas in the privacy of their own home. Happy Bum Co. makes it easy with their Happy Bum bundles and enema kits. They come with everything you need, including instructions and resources. Check out happybumco.com and use promo code Nurses Uncorked for 15% off your first bundle. The Enema Award this week goes to St. Luke's Health, Sugarland Hospital in Texas, specifically to the chief nursing officer and some of the ICU nurses. It's a shared award this week. So allegedly, this is all alleged, okay, for entertainment purposes only. Allegedly, the CNO unilaterally changed the staffing grid to triple ICU nurses recently. And this may or may not have been just a couple of weeks after the ICU nurses sent leadership a letter, basically, of all their concerns, right? So the timing is very suspect and it reeks of retaliation. But here's the kicker. They're not even short-staffed. They supposedly have enough nurses on staff. So they're not changing the staffing grid to accommodate a shortage. They're actually calling nurses off, canceling them for the purpose of tripling nurses, allegedly. And there's already been 2 really close call near misses. So here's the thing. Texas is one of only 2 states that is a safe harbor state. Okay. And this is an amazing, amazing thing. but it only exists in Texas and New Mexico. And it's basically like a phone number that you call and report really unsafe conditions. And it comes with all sorts of protections from retaliation and all the things, right? It's a really strong law set up to protect patients and nurses and healthcare workers if you invoke safe harbor. Okay. So tell me why, to my understanding, the nurses there are too afraid to call safe harbor because they are allegedly being threatened by the CNO, being told, strongly urged, you better not call safe harbor because there will be consequences. Well, listen, you're lucky enough to live in one of the 2 states that has it. And if you're too cowardly to use it, that's 100% on you and no one can help you. You've got stronger protections than just about anywhere else other than maybe California. So if you're not using that, that's on you. That's on you. So this week's Enema Award is shared between allegedly the chief nursing officer there at St. Luke's Health Sugarland Hospital in Texas and the ICU nurses that really, really need to man it. I didn't realize you had a podcast prior, a different podcast.
Yeah, I did. It was called Mile 17. It was inspired by I ran the Boston Marathon a couple years ago. Yeah, and Mile 17 was where my husband at the time was, my sister, and my sister's boyfriend. And it was like the whole time I was running the marathon, like Mile 17 was in my mind. I knew they would be there. And I got there, gave them all like kisses and hugs, and they gave me snacks, and it was so great. And then as soon as I left Mile 17, and let me just preface this with, I did not train well for that marathon. I was very underprepared. Okay. And so I had only ran a total, like the most I had run was like 10 or 11 miles in my training. So to then go 26 miles, it's a big reach. So after Mile 17, I was like, oh my God, I still have, what was like 9 miles to go. Like, this is terrible. So my metaphor for like the podcast was, when you get to this Mile 17 in your life, you have the choice to maybe stop if you're injured or you feel like you need to pivot and do something else, or, you have to like really dig deeper, find that next level and keep going to get to like the end of the finish line to finish the marathon. And that was kind of like the metaphor. Like, we have those Mile 17s like all the time in our lives. And I would ask people at the end of each episode, like, what's your Mile 17? Like, what is something that you didn't think you'd be able to overcome, but you did? And when you got to the other side of it, you were just so proud of yourself, and you can look back on that and reflect on those things. And that was kind of the impetus of the podcast.
So what's your Mile 17?
Wow. Well, that's a great question. Again, there's I feel like a lot that I could really probably bring up, but I think one for me personally right now, to kind of, I guess if I was going to tie this into nursing, would be taking a step back from the bedside, because, and I know it might sound like kind of a weird answer, but I think as nurses, and I've made content kind of around this, we really tie our identity into what we do as nurses, and especially at the bedside. Especially nurses in critical care, it's like when you have the ICU or ER badge, it's your ego is like,
yep,
can't fit in the room,
Yep.
And I've had that, I feel like, before, and so to just have the courage in myself to be like, I can take a step back. I needed to take a step back because my mental health, I felt so bad. I just felt like my step back, I went per diem, and now I don't even work there at all. Just having that courage to be like, I'm going to step away from this. It'll be here if I want to come back. I'm not going to lose all these skills. It might be a little rusty if I do come back, but I'm very proud of actually listening to myself, because how I usually would operate would just push through these things, bulldoze through them no matter how I'm feeling. But I really listened to myself and kind of took the step back, and I'm really proud of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you end up pivoting from the previous podcast to your new podcast, Club Nurse? And by the way, I love, if you guys aren't watching the video, I love that we both happen to have our neon podcast signs behind us, the Club Nurse and Nurses Uncorked. I love that.
Yeah, I know. This is the best way to market really the podcast. When I was thinking about starting the podcast, I'm like, it's always in there in the clips. I don't know how else to do this right now other than to throw a neon sign up there.
Right.
Well, I did. So like I said, I stopped Mile 17 when the Nurse Daddies really took off. So I hadn't done it it's probably been about a year. And then Club Nurse, I had done some work with nurse.org and
Me too.
kind of built. Yeah. I've seen you on there. Built kind of a relationship with them, and then I had done them on their Nurse Converse podcast, and then I just honestly just kind of pitched the idea to them and was like, I think that there's some space in here for maybe having a podcast with one host to kind of build up an audience that kind of, knows the host that they're going to come back to. And so I just kind of pitched myself, and yeah, it's kind of how it came about.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. And you're
And Club
doing...
Nurse is really, so basically how the show right now is going is I have like one guest on per week. It's every Wednesday. Usually we launch that episode, and then I'm doing mini episodes. Usually I think we've been kind of playing with it, but I think right now I'm doing one mini episode per week where I just cover like breaking news for the week of things that like have come out. Yeah. So it's kind of the cadence we're going with right now.
That's great. I love it. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of under the umbrella of nurse.org, sort of, but it's
Mhm.
your podcast.
Yeah, it's my podcast,
okay.
but it is on their network. Like they do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for me, which is nice. I plan the episodes. I find like my own guests. The news that I cover is all my choice of what I want to do. They're just there to kind of honestly support and help market the show. Yeah.
Well, and some of the behind the scenes stuff is not fun. I can tell you now, for the last 3 months, I've been
Anybody
having
out
to
there
do
that
it.
wants to start a podcast, I'm not saying not to, but just know that yes, it is a lot of work, and it's not
It's
just showing
so
up to
much
hit
work.
record and talking to a microphone. It is so much work. Like,
So
and
much.
it's
There's
the
a
behind the
reason
scenes.
that like the 90% fail before they get to, I think, 20 episodes or something is
Yeah,
the
I
statistic.
believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
much.
And showing up, there's sometimes where you're just like, I just don't want to talk to anybody right now, but you've got somebody planned and you just got to get on there and get yourself in the zone. And, people are taking their time out, which I'm always so grateful for anybody to take their time out to even just come chat with me. So,
Well, same. I'm grateful that you took time
Yeah.
out to come here today. Thank you so much.
Of course. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about Nurses Uncorked or the situation you've gone through? Do you feel like you've kind of gotten things out of your system, or kind of given people like an idea of what your goals are here, what people can expect?
I just want to thank the loyal listeners and patrons for their patience. I know that it's been confusing because there hasn't been a lot of explanation, and I hope that you can understand maybe a little bit better now after this episode as to why. And, thank you for being patient with the hiccups, because I suddenly was thrown into the deep end, unexpectedly, and had to learn how to do the editing and just all the stuff that I never had to worry about before. And it's not something I love doing. So it's been a whole learning curve. And, for example, there was one episode where I forgot to put on the echo cancellation for parts of it. And so people were sending me messages like, "What's with the echo?" I'm so sorry. I'll never do it
Yeah.
again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's just been little things like that. Oh, so I do a patron episode every week. I do a bonus episode, but then I also do a patron version of the actual episode where I take out any sponsored ads and stuff like that. Well, I just totally forgot to take out the sponsored ads for like a solid 6 weeks.
It's fine. You live and you learn,
So thank you to everyone for being patient. Every time there's a hiccup, I learn and I try not to do it again. And then I know it's getting better. I feel like it's getting better and moving forward, but still there's a little bit of a learning curve and a transition, but hang in there, and thank you for your continued support.
I mean, the important thing is and this is like what I go back to when I feel like I'm having these technical difficulties or hiccups or whatever, is the intentions there. You're obviously doing this for a reason, good intentions, and for people to have, like we talked about, resources, be educated on things, hear stories from really, really important people that have things to say. So I think that even if there's these little hiccups, the intention's there, and I think that will resonate with your audience no matter what.
And thank you. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so you can find me right now on Instagram, like I said, at Colton Lord. On TikTok, it's still at Nurse Daddies. Again, kind of playing with exactly how I'm going to go about all of that. And yeah, then the podcast Instagram is at club.nurse. Just started that. And yeah, then the podcast, you can find Club Nurse on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you can go to nurse.org/Club Nurse, and that has everything on there as well.
Thank you so much, Colton. This has been great.
Of course. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
That's it for this episode of Nurses Uncorked, where facts speak louder than followers. I want to thank everyone for downloading the episode and sharing with friends. Patrons of the podcast get early access to episodes, patron-only bonus episodes, even patron Zoom parties. There's a link in the show notes. I'm Nurse Erica, and I'll see you in the fight.